Hi, you guys. This is my mini lecture on modes of natural selection. So, the first part we're going to talk about is how natural selection shapes populations, and it can do that in many different ways. And first, let's look at these forms. It could be directional, disruptive, or stabilizing. And what's that mean? So let's take one at a time. Directional selection. So that's the example of the moths in London. Remember? The trees were getting darker. The moths then that were light were all getting picked off the trees, and those that had a mutation and they were slightly darker were the ones that were surviving, reproducing, and leaving more offspring in the next generation. So look at my graph there. Whereas you'd have maybe some that were light and some that were dark, then there's going to be a shift in the population now to many more surviving that are dark because they're more camouflaged against those trees. So that is an example of a directional selection, which means it's going in one particular direction. It's going towards the darker moths. So those are the ones that are surviving. Well, how is that different in other types of selection? Well, this is my first example, the directional, and it has to do with pigmentation. Let's go now to disruptive selection. So in this case, you would have extreme phenotypes that are favored. So first you look at the graph that's evenly distributed, where you have some snails, and these are aquatic, that are on rocks close to the water, and some are light, and some are medium, and some are dark. And that's their pigmentation. However, something happens to that habitat. The habitat changes a little bit, and whereas there used to be rocks that were light colored and medium colored and dark colored, now those medium colored rocks that were tinier got buried, let's say, and they all got buried, and you either are visibly seeing light colored rocks or dark colored rocks. So the camouflage of the light snail is fine, the camouflage of the dark snail is fine, but that medium individual is the one that's getting picked off by the birds because there was a habitat change. So that's disruptive selection. It's not towards the light or towards the dark. It's kind of towards against the middle one, right? Towards both ends, but against the middle coloration. So that is disruptive. The third example is stabilizing selection, where the intermediate, it's exactly the opposite of the previous example. The intermediate is the one that's favored. And a very good example of that, stabilizing selection, is in infants, human infants, right? You don't want a child at birth that's very teeny because they might not do very well. You don't want a child at birth that's huge because the mom might not do very well. So really, the medium-sized baby is the one that's best selected for, because it's not going to harm the mother, it's not going to harm the child. So those are the ones that are going to survive and do best in the middle ones. So that's the stabilizing selection example. We want to move on also to sexual selection, which is an amazing topic to study because there's so many beautiful examples of sexual selection. This one I'm showing you male dimorphism. This is a wood duck that's a beautiful male with all these amazing colors, and then the more drab female next to the male. So you think, why is that happening? Why do you have such sexual dimorphism? Why do they look so different? And it has to do with these organisms mate for life. And this coloration is an advertising to the female, who is very picky and picking her males or her one male depending on this beautiful coloration. She, on the other hand, doesn't want to be colored because she has to sit on a nest, and talk about a sitting duck there. She will be noticed more by a predator if she were colored. So we know that sexual selection directly influences reproductive success. And here are some amazing pictures. There's one of a bird, an A. This is a male, and he makes these, it's a weaver bird who makes this amazingly woven nest for the female to pick. So in this case, she's not picking the coloration of the male, she's picking which is the better nest, the real estate, the better real estate. And next to that is a bowerbird that's exhibiting this beautiful behavior by extending out their tail and flapping out their wings, and they essentially dance in front of the female to get picked. And down below are elephant seals that you might have seen here on our coast that will fight to the bitter end for a harem. And so all this is fighting for that breeding to be able to leave offspring in the next generation to increase their fitness. So I'm going to read to you now on the slide. It says, at face value, building complex nests or flashing showy plumage or budding heads, they appear to waste energy, right? It's like, what a waste. But no, what's happening is that's probably what's going to get them a mating, right? The outcome of all these displays have to do with getting a mating with a female. The birds of paradise are the most amazing birds. That sort of smiley face in the back is the male that has arranged his feathers in such a way that it looks like that. And I'll guide you to the videos that I've posted for you on this because they're the most amazing displays. And the female will sit there and decide whether this is a male that she's going to pick or not. She can be very picky. So I'm reading sexual selection is a type of natural selection resulting from variation in the ability to obtain mates. So you look at the peacock male feathers. That's an amazing display. The quetzal to the right, which is in Central America, beautiful bird with the longest feathers. You'd think those would get stuck everywhere and that a predator could get them easily. So it's a trade-off between your display being enough for a female and not so elaborate that you could get stuck in the bushes and end up getting eaten by a fox. And the deer with their antlers. I've been seeing them here in Nicene, and they have little teeny antlers, the males. Pretty soon they'll look like the one below here in my picture. And you'd think those would get stuck in the trees too, right? But that all is sexual display to a female because the male with the better traits is the one that's going to be able to leave his offspring in the next generation. There's the builder of a nest again, the hanging nest, and then below is another example. These are all tropical birds. They're not around here. Here's the male making a food offering to the female of a butterfly, saying, okay, I'm a great male. Look, I'm a good provider. Look at the food I bring you. Another incredible example of bowerbirds, what they will do, and I also have a video on this, so please be sure to look at those. The bowerbirds will make, this isn't a nest that he built there, it's actually a stage. He builds a stage and then he dances in that stage, and he likes to decorate that stage. And some researchers figured out that they really like blue. So they dropped some blue straws and some blue lids, and those birds just collected those up and decorated their stage so that they could dance. They then dance in that stage and the female watches. And if she approves, she'll mate with this bird. And if not, she'll just walk off. So there is all types of displays. This is Elvis, and that's another type of display also to the females. So think about what it is that the female is picking. You know, when she picks a beautiful color, what is it really that she's seeing in that? What is the reason? Is that a trait that doesn't count at all for fitness, or is it a trait that does count for fitness? Maybe her offspring then will have those beautiful colors, and her offspring will be able to have many matings. And so it behooves her to pick a male that's going to pass some positive traits on to her own sons. So those have evolved. It's a form of natural selection that has evolved so that those, beautiful birds are the ones that are leaving more offspring and are being selected for. Super interesting. Please see those videos because they are amazing. I'll stop there.